Welcome to podcast 172. Do you want to know what a field engineer does in a step-by-step guide? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I really do. I hope you're going to have a wonderful Sunday today. I hope it's relaxing or spiritual or whatever you want it to be. We are going to talk today about a brief podcast covering the process of how the step-by-step guide of what a field engineer actually can and should do on site. And I did a little bit of an audit. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. I did a little bit of an audit, and I've gone through the worker and field engineer topics that I feel are appropriate. And so because I'm going to spend most of my time focusing on the book called Elevating Construction Field Engineers, and we're going to be focusing on the worker boot camps coming up, I'm going to pause the Saturday and Sunday topics for workers and field engineers just so we can put our efforts and focus there. Also, I don't want any of the content to sound redundant because we've been through the majority of the portions or the topics here that we need to cover before we focus on the boot camps and the books and the field engineering methods manual. And so I might choose to put out additional content like we do with, like Calumet K, or there might be some inspirational topics or some interviews on Saturdays or Sundays, or every now and then I might have one, but don't count on the Saturday and Sunday podcasts going forward because, again, we're going to spend our time on the book and on the boot camps that are coming up. But really what I'm super excited about is that our content is going to get better and better and better. In fact, I found a way to get music involved, so you should hear music involved in the podcast at least 2 weeks from now, if not this next week. And there are some really good topics that we're going to cover. There's going to be some topics about being decisive, about drive. There's some more lean topics that we absolutely have to cover. There's just so much more content that we want to get. So we are going to be strong, really strong during the week. 5 podcasts a week. I'm going to target 18 minutes. Really good content for you. Please continue to give us feedback. So lots of really fun things coming out. And man, I need you to pray and hope that Elevating Construction Superintendents gets out on Audible by the 1st. We're down to the deadline here. In fact, they sent me some corrections on the files. We did, I'm not whining, I'm just letting you share in our journey here a little bit. We recorded everything. Actually, I recorded it. The audio didn't cut. My wife recorded it, and actually she's the narrator on Elevating Construction Superintendents. And we had to redo it again. And then we found out that our recording studio still allows bird noises in there. So she recorded 24 sections just the other night. And our producer is producing those files and getting them updated. I've never done so much over processing and in an unlean fashion in my life. It is absolutely ridiculous. Next time I'm going to just hire the recording out, even if we have to go to the studio. Man, this has been a big deal, but I'm really hoping and praying that audiobook, the Audible version, will be available as close to the first of the year as possible. Right now, it's out on Amazon. If you've ordered some of the original copies, I hope you're enjoying it. And we've already made updates to the table of contents, to the front and back cover, and we're going to continue to collect stories for that book, whether it's on Kindle and it's updated on your Kindle platform, or whether you order it on paperback. So really excited about that. But man, if you're going to go do a book recording on audio for Audible, please give me a call, because I've been through about every mistake that we can possibly imagine. But when you get it, it's going to be a good product, and we hope you enjoy it. So let's talk about some of the listeners today. Here's one. Hey, Jason, fantastic. I want to thank you for all your hard work getting that book out. It has become a part of my morning routine to read it for half an hour, and I feel that every day when I read it, it ignites my mind to how to lead my project team to an effective project for all parties within the space. I'm out in South San Francisco doing life science work, and with all that expansion from COVID, the size, speed, and scope of projects and the pace are larger than I've ever done, and it's challenging me. I really appreciate the resources you are putting out. It has been helpful to be able to look to your podcast and book as a source of knowledge to improve on. So for you who sent me this feedback, I really appreciate your kind words. And again, the book, Elevating Construction Senior Superintendents, will add to that. So will the books about foremen, workers, and field engineers as they come out this next year. We're going to grind. We're going to get out this really good information with some beautiful books, beautiful covers, really great content. On we go. So let me talk about, one more thing before we get started. What do I see changing in the construction industry? One thing that I hear and that I want us to change is this concept of having field engineers. There's so many general contractors that don't have the field engineering position, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do see companies starting to have that. Like for instance, DPR, a fantastic company, is starting to have field engineers. Oakland, 3 years ago, started having field engineers. Now they have a full program. More and more general contractors are getting field engineers and being very, very, very successful with them and training their future superintendents. And so one thing that I would like to see change in the construction industry is that we implement the use, the training, and the implementation of field engineers on our construction projects, especially the large ones where we can afford it. It's an absolutely amazing experience. So here's some conflict for you today. Usually field engineers are either not there or are only used at partial capacity, and they can help with so much more. And in fact, when superintendents sometimes say, "Oh, I don't need field engineers. Why would I do that?" Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, hold on a minute. If somebody told me that I could have, and I'm going to call it an assistant, it's not exactly that, but an assistant that helped me with quality control and survey and management and layout and oversight and safety presence in the field and unburdened me from all of the things that I feel like I have to do so I can focus on truly what I have to do, I would be like, sign me up. Like, it's amazing. The number one person that a field engineer helps is the superintendent. So those should be our biggest advocates for field engineering. And so let me tell you a quick story. So all of my life working at Hensel Phelps, we've had field engineers. I was a field engineer, never been on a project without field engineers. Sure, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system. There are mistakes that need to be made. There's training that has to be done, but it's always worked, right? And so I was asked one time at a different company when I switched from Hensel Phelps to do a job without field engineers. And it was an absolute chaotic, disgusting, horrific, horror story nightmare. And somebody could say, well, Jason, you just don't know how to build jobs without field engineers. Okay, fine. Okay. I think I know better than to get past that, but it was an absolute just horrific nightmare because the quality control then turns to the third-party surveyors. The quality control then is on our trade partners, and then it's on the superintendent. And we had a decent-sized team. And even with that, and even with all the double checks, and even with the other superintendent and me renting a total station and using our GC carpenters to check as much as we could, we still spent like $250,000 out of contingency from just layout mistakes and just general mistakes that would normally be spent, on the GCs or the cost of work for paying for a field engineer. Now, somebody would be like, you're still spending the money. Well, okay. Well, in one sense, I spent the money on things that ate out of our contingency and made us look bad. And in the other sense, and even though there are still little mistakes with field engineers, we would have spent the money intentionally and trained superintendents to boot. So I'm all in for field engineers. And it was just a nightmare, whether it was embeds or alignment or working with the third-party surveyors or checking as we came out of the basement. It was an absolute, just disgusting, horrific nightmare. And so I vowed after that I would never attempt, even in good faith, to build a job without field engineers. And so the next job, the pharmacy, we trained one of our craft workers, and I've told you that story about Lug Cruz, amazing guy. We're going to do a showcase on him one of these days. Didn't speak Spanish, or didn't speak English 8 months before, only spoke Spanish. And he was able to be trained to be a field engineer, did all the primary, did all the secondary control, did all the layout, used the robotic, did the lift drawings. I mean, it was amazing, and it turned out amazingly. And I've never done a job since then without field engineers, and I'm never going to. You can't pay me enough to do that and sign up for that nightmare. So that's my introductory story here. And so here's the principle. And I do want this to be a rather shorter podcast and to be kind of the capstone of my worker and field engineer podcast that I used to do on the weekends. And moving forward, we'll focus on better and better content, right? But I want to leave you again with a little bit of dissonance, a little bit of a disconnect. I want to explain what a field engineer really should be doing on the project, or could be doing rather. Let's just leave it like that so I'm not offensive. And then hopefully that creates some dissonance, some disconnect, a gap that we strive to close so that we can get even closer to where we want to be with field engineers and really change our industry and just take this to the next level. So if I was going to coach a field engineer on what I wanted her or him to do as a part of their process, these are some of the general things that I would do to coach them. So number one, I would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Field Engineer, get your personal organization system. I would teach them to be some of the most organized people on site. I would tell them, number two, to begin noting everything down. I want them to learn and absorb and grow and fail forward at every step. I would buy them their personal set of tool bags. Usually I get the electrician's bags and then get them all of the layout tools that they need, any of the tools that they need. I would buy the total station, the conventional total station, the automatic level, the tripods, the level rods, the mini prisms, the chains, any of the things that they need for general layout, and the lasers, and make sure that they have all of it and it's calibrated and good to go. Okay. So the tools and equipment, I'm going to spend the money on it. Number four, I would get them the Field Engineering Methods Manual. They would have to know in depth chapters 1 through 8, but I would also encourage them to read the entire thing. But we would use chapters 1 through 8 as kind of like our Field Engineering Bible. It talks about organization. It talks about layout. It talks about total station use, automatic level use. It talks about lasers. Those 1 to 8 chapters are amazing. If you get into chapter 11, and 10, you're going to be dealing with equipment calibration and other really good content. And so I do recommend the rest of the book. But if I had field engineers, they would have a copy of the Field Engineering Methods Manual, physical copy, pay Wes Crawford at creativeconstruction.com or on Amazon, wherever. Get that book. It's a game changer. And that would guide their career, quite frankly, for the rest of their time. Then I would have them understand their next project assignment, study the drawings, get familiar with where they were going to be, and begin them on a system of scheduling their work and their layout. The other thing I would get them is their field book and say, you're going to use this for your to-do list, preferably, but especially for all of your field notes, your layout, your notes, your quality assignments, your as-builts, everything else. And I would get them on a system where they study the drawings for 30 minutes every day, and they would fill out a project startup schedule. And if you need that, please email me. I might even do a blog post for you so you have that content. But that startup schedule would take them through the first 90 days and get them to where they have the equipment, they have their testing area, they know when they're doing primary, they know when they're doing secondary, they know what lift drawings need to be done. A project startup schedule is key for a field engineer. Then the next thing is I would start them up on a lift drawing schedule. They have to do these lift drawings, even if it's just getting the information pieced together, even if the craft never receives them in a condition where they can use them, your field engineers have to be doing lift drawings, okay? And then I would set up a layout schedule so they know when lift drawings are needed and layout. All survey equipment would be on site by that time. That's number 12. Everything that they needed. And I would set up their FE bullpen. So their FE bullpen would have their desks, their stand-up desks, all of the tools and equipment they need, the screens, the computers, and they would have a place to put their equipment, all of their surveying equipment. Then I would get them a testing area so they could test their chain, they could test their lasers, they could test their automatic level, they could make sure that they do their horizontal and vertical angle checks on the total station. They have an area to test their chain. I don't know if I already said that, but they have to be able to test their equipment. And then I would make sure to go through with them and make sure all equipment is calibrated. Then I would have them work with them to set up their total station and their data collector and make sure that everything was tested from start to finish. Make sure that their AutoCAD, their Revit, I'm on number 18 now, their Revit, their AutoCAD, their SketchUp, their Excel, all of their systems on the computer were ready to go, and that they learned AutoCAD and that they learned Revit. And then I would make sure that everything on the project site, the basis of bearings, the design benchmark, and all of that was coordinated with the property corners and with the location of the building, and make sure that I was ready for primary control and involve a third-party surveyor or internal company surveyors. Then I would go through all of their typical tasks, make sure they have JHAs or AHAs for all of their work, right? And I would make sure that with surveyor, with a third party, we're going from the basis of bearings to the primary control and creating a primary control map. We would traverse the primary control together and overlay that onto the original coordinates and do an analysis and a best fit adjustment. Then we would level loop through the design benchmark and through all of our primary control and adjust the elevations to make sure that we were publishing a good northing, easting, and elevation, a good XYZ for every monument, every coordinate in concrete. Then we would set up and we would design and set up our secondary control as semi-permanent monuments around the building or buildings. And we would design that to where we were at the right offsets for the grid lines to come into the building for our working control. So we would do that by setting up baselines, whether they're inside intersecting baselines or a single baseline, or exterior intersecting baselines or a single baseline. I typically wouldn't do corner offsets. I don't know what good those do. I really always want a baseline with 4 points. Then I would teach them and work with them on how to transfer benchmarks into the building, two of them, and then begin using our working control and use our chain for our double checks and start them and actually do this with them. Go do a pour check the first time with them. Teach them how to do that. Teach them how to check bar size. Teach them how to check spacing. Teach them to check the form setup, the kickers, make sure that everything's in alignment. Go do a pour check with them to start out. That's a beautiful process. And actually fill out the pour check card, whether it's on, Procore or a different app or a physical checklist, whatever, do that with them. And then once concrete is done, I would do that with them for feature of workboards as well. As they learn and actually use Revit for their lift drawings and learn those sketching tools for any future applications. And so these field engineers would be doing lift drawings, they would be doing layout, they would be doing placement check cards, and they would be on the front lines for safety and anything that deals with quality. They would also be writing RFIs for me. When necessary, when the project engineer or office engineer aren't doing that, they'd be doing trend charts for me, and they would make sure after that we together are designing their methods for vertical control transfer or, long horizontal transfer, whatever is going on, or if it's a civil project, doing it with, I'm going to say wide open spaces, but larger geographical areas. And then we would make sure that we have a method to transfer elevations vertically and that we're doing grid leveling on our structural decks. And as we go, they would be in a system to where me as the superintendent, I'm checking to make sure everything's going in per schedule. And they are with productive paranoia, assuming that everything's wrong and checking to see if it's right. And the reason that I mention this, and there's like 43 steps here, that seems like a lot, but it actually is. To be a good field engineer, you need to know what you're doing, right? And to be a company that has field engineers, there needs to be a program which we can help you with at Elevate Construction. I'm not actually selling that. I'm just saying that I really feel like even if you just introduce that book into your organization, you'll be better off, because the current condition is field engineers are either not there, not used, or they're like personal assistants. And really, field engineers shouldn't be personal assistants. Field engineers are professional construction managers and engineers in the field. And right now, they're usually not being used the way they need to be. And it's a builder experience. So like if you're a general contractor and you're saying, I wish I had better supers. I just wish they knew more. I wish. Or I want to transfer craft and I want to make sure that craft are getting opportunities. Field engineering is your silver bullet, guys and gals. Field engineering is what gets that. Field engineering is what gives them the opportunity to be builders, to take that time before they're actually leaders, planners, and managers. And so I would challenge you to integrate the Field Engineering Methods Manual into pretty much anything that you're doing on a builder, at least from a field builder standpoint. Consider doing a field engineer boot camp, having a field engineer, experimenting with it, and heading down this road where you really give people this opportunity. If you are successfully able to integrate field engineering into your organization, hiring will be better, training will be better, your supers will be better, your projects will be better. It is absolutely amazing. I really hope you consider this. And just one more time, there is no there is no shrinkage on this podcast, meaning we're not shrinking the amount of content that we're producing. We're just not going to focus on the worker and field engineer posts on Saturdays and Sundays because we're at a point where now it needs to be focused on the book and the boot camps. Okay. So we will continue to improve the other content during those 5 days, and we will likely also release additional episodes. We're also going to do a lot more interviews, and we're going to add music. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Consider field engineering. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.